sure that because last week,
Yep.
because of one of the Facebook destinations, my dialogue partner, his or it might have been his camera, but he was horizontal.
Okay.
Wow, right? Even though for me, we both were vertical, whatever,
Right.
right? But yeah, this like I said, I a guy said to me the other day that I profit from the chaos in Jeet Kune, right? Because I have
Yeah.
two weekly podcasts, and I'm like, I don't make any money. Well, I don't understand what he means by profit from
Yeah.
that.
I think everybody is under this really gross assumption that anybody that's a podcaster or influencer or whatever is somehow making like lottery ticket money.
Yeah,
And it's like, no, that's not the case.
no, no. I mean, not surprisingly, Joseph, I have 2,600 subscribers to the dialogues. Why?
Okay.
Because it's me and somebody else.
Okay.
But to the broadcast on Wednesdays, when I lecture to the camera,
Yep.
it's like 500
Yeah. You're
because
not going to, you're
nobody
not
wants
drawing much off of that. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right, you
Yeah. It's
know.
a passion thing, man.
Exactly. And I wasn't even smart enough to set up like a paid version where you
Okay.
get more stuff, and then the free version. Like I don't know anything about that type of stuff, right? So anyhow, but
Yeah. Yeah.
this is not about me.
Sure.
One of the greatest pleasures in doing the dialogues, Joseph, is when I get to talk to somebody like you who is infinitely smarter than I am. So
You're way too flattering.
okay. So, by way of introduction, everyone, this is Joseph S. Harrison. You used to be in Florida, but you're not anymore. Or am I wrong about that too?
No, actually, truth be told, we are in North Idaho right now. So we're about an hour from the border of Canada. So we're in Sandpoint, Idaho. We're leaving on the 16th. Truth be told, is that we're heading back to the east side. We thought we
Okay.
wanted to live out west somewhere,
Right.
and we've been through this, 7.5 year journey,
Right.
both from traveling and writing the book and all that, because we thought we wanted to be out this way. We left Florida. We got to see the country, and we realized how much we didn't know or how much we were missing out on other parts of the U.S. And we're like, well, since we've already lived on that side, the east
Mhm.
side, for so long in our whole lives, well, let's make a change and go out here. There's so much more to see. It turns out that um, going back to the east side is just a lot better for our needs and our wants and desires. And it's just
Okay.
whatever what was we were trying to achieve or look for or get
Right.
on this side of the equation, it doesn't exist. And we keep trying to make it exist, but the universe just keeps saying, go home.
Okay.
and
Okay.
so we're heading back towards the Carolinas. So we're going to be over there come the 26th.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to, hopefully it'll be over. We are crossing our fingers that we stop traveling. I'm done. She's done.
Right.
And, Casey has been my rock in this process. And I couldn't thank her enough for basically supporting us both in this process. But
Yeah.
it's been a ride. It really
Yeah.
has.
Okay, just for background for everybody, there was a Facebook post. I don't know if I did it or if I commented on somebody's post, and then Joseph commented, and then
Yeah,
he threw this thing out to me about my familiarity with the hero's journey and Plato's cave.
that's right.
But like I said, you're smarter than I am. So I'm gonna let everybody know. So Joseph was on a 7 year quest of his own. So
Yeah,
we're gonna talk about the quest. We're gonna talk about how Plato's cave and the hero's journey all fit into this. But my what I wanted to do first, there was a post that you did
yep,
um, a short while ago, and
right.
I read it and I thought I am going to my first set of questions will be born out of what you wrote.
Yes,
Okay, so you said in the 7 years that you crisscrossed the entire U.S., you can count on maybe one hand the number of times that you ran into or experienced a so-called MacDojo,
Right.
right? And you affirmed that they are out there, but not nearly in the numbers that the popular narrative would have us believe.
That's
So
right.
my question is, why does this narrative persist? Why is there even a YouTube channel
Yes, right.
dedicated to MacDojoing,
That's right.
right? How come?
So, okay. So, from the best that I can tell, and again, this is not, and let me just say this at the outset, nothing of what I say or respond to or with is born out of absolutism or finality. Okay. So that means at any point in time, there's a likelihood that even my opinions, suggestions, and outlooks could change. So based right
Right.
now, so, and back to your question, which is um, why do I think that is? That there's this narrative
Hmm.
that seems to be a very pervasive narrative surrounding the idea of McDojos.
Yes.
Okay. Well, there was a time, or there was at least a period in time where that probably was a lot more appropriate because at that time period, there was a lot that did exist. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, even back then, when you look back then, it was still in too small of numbers to justify the so called outrage. Okay.
Right.
So the number of well meaning people in the martial art and self defense world still heavily outnumbered, even at that time, 70s, 80s, and 90s and up.
Hmm.
They still heavily outnumbered the people that were out there that you would be able to classify or qualify as a McDojo. So then the question still remains: then why? What's the big deal? Why are we making such a stink about all these McDojos and bullshito and
Yeah.
all this jazz? And forgive me if my dog barks. He's a very excited. He barks at everything. So if he barks, I'm sorry. Um, anyway, so the big question is what's the big deal? Why are we making this out to be a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And I believe that it's because it's low hanging fruit for those who are trying to gain some kind of a political pole position in martial arts. So they're using it to decertify, devalidate, or discredit.
Hmm.
And by doing that, it then makes them look better. Right. It,
Is
it, it basically it basically puts them in that pole position. Like, look over there, these guys are doing fake stuff and I'm doing real stuff, so I'm cooler, or I'm
right.
smarter, or I'm better, or whatever. So I think it's low hanging fruit, and they use it as more of a like a propaganda tactic or some kind of advertising tactic, or even in today's influencer age,
Right.
it's part of their narrative that makes them look, sound, and feel, like they're on the better side of the fence, so to speak. And so now, in defense now of those people that do that, yes, there were a lot of people. There were a significant number of people, but not significant enough. But there were enough of them that were out there that were, telling lies, teaching nonsense,
Hmm.
fakery, fantasy,
Hmm.
yada yada. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, I don't discount that, but I think that the positions that people take against that whole narrative with the McDojos and the Bullshito and all that, I think it's way overblown. But, and keep in mind, I was that guy. I was one of those guys 6 years ago when I first talked on your podcast. Um, I was that guy going on and on and on about Bullshito this and McDojo that and nonsense. I was the guy, I was that person. And now that I've been across the United States and crisscrossed it multiple times,
Right.
I can tell you definitively that they exist in a much smaller number than the narrative would have you believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's more integrity in martial art than people are aware of.
Oh, way more.
Yeah.
Let me actually bounce off what you just said there. In one of my top 15 observations across the U.S., I would say, and I'm going to explain to you how I performed my observations or how I performed my
Yeah.
investigation. Right. I would say that the overwhelming majority of art systems and styles and schools that are out there are well-meaning. Meaning they're coming from as genuine of a place as they can, or as honest of a place as they can, or etc.
Hmm.
I did find quite a few schools that were the opposite, but again, they were a drop in the pond.
Right.
Um, so that part actually surprised me the most. That most of them were actually being pretty upfront and honest about what they were doing and why. And that kind of caught me off guard because I didn't expect that. Why?
Hmm.
Because I had been caught in
Right.
that narrative. I
Yeah.
was engulfed in that. I was engulfed in that narrative flame of
Hmm.
McDojo this and bullshito that and
Yeah.
whatever. Everybody's doing stuff that doesn't work in a real fight, whatever. But it turns out that that's not the case.
Do you have percentage numbers of what arts were involved in this?
Ask again.
Do you have percentage numbers? Is it like was did the observation, was it more Taekwondo than BJJ, more Japanese karate or Okinawan karate than Kung Fu, or do you have numbers for any of that?
I wasn't tracking numbers in terms of the art itself.
Okay.
I was tracking numbers in terms of just schools. Like if it's a
Okay.
martial arts school,
Right. Right.
because then if I start going into art systems and styles, you start going into the weeds, and then you're going into like a 3, 4, 5 volume book, and there was just no way I could do that. I want to tell the audience, I'm just one guy. Like
Right.
this was a very, very monumental, like very large project to take on, and I did not have the resources that anyone would be able to have to undertake this kind of a thing. But that being said, I still feel like I did a pretty good job because
Yeah.
I did have the luxury to crisscross all over the U.S. and see a lot of these schools and get a general semblance of what was going on out there.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
and a lot about me personally has changed because of that process. There were things that I said 6, 7 years ago that I'm never going to say again because a lot has changed. My perceptions, my understandings, my um, just how I see things now. Like something that Casey, my girlfriend, told me a long time ago, and this helped reshape or reframe my approach, which was um, knowledge is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing it doesn't go in a fruit salad. Okay,
Right.
so that's kind of you know
That's good.
part of the framework
Yeah.
that I went into trying to understand what I was looking at because the first okay in the very beginning the book was going to be basically a scathing and very upfront and honest expose
Hmm.
on the martial art industry. It was going to be a
Hmm.
very scathing expose, meaning I was basically in attack mode because I was really angry at a lot of different things, including the reasons why people didn't come to my school or I wasn't able to get the numbers that I needed or wanted in order to justify or in order to actually live off of it or make money or whatever.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that people down the road from me with the stuff that they were teaching that they were getting 10 times the attention. And I'm like, what is the deal? Like what is so the question that started this whole process before I even left my studio in Florida was why don't more people do martial arts? And the good news is that I have definitively figured out why that is. And the answer is an A side, B side answer. And on each side, on the A and B side, there are factors that lead to reasons on the industry side, and there are factors that lead to reasons on the consumer side, right?
Uh,
So it's not a one answer thing. I wish I could find the one answer. Oh, because people are lazy, or oh, because instructors are, there was nothing like that. Um, and how I had to go about this is I had to completely write off um, 30, I was about maybe 40 or 50 schools around that number. I had to completely dump that information. And the reason why is because I came to a sudden realization that 100% of what I was doing was based on a subjective bias. My observations were coming up were so if you had read that old book, it would have been just Joe's big opinion on things.
right.
And I'm like, I can't do that. And then that would be dishonest. And I'm like, well, I don't know
Mm.
what to do now. So there were so many times where I threw this whole project out,
Yeah.
and um, and I was like, it's going to be just one big book of Joe's opinions. And I was like, well, I can't do that. So then how do I go about it? How do I go about investigating what's going on out there and try to be upfront and honest about it? So I had to practice reframing my approach. And my
Right.
approach is basically akin to, like a CSI investigator, right? Like I had to go there and I had to be like, okay, I have to be dispassionate, unbiased, and
Hmm.
objective in my observations. So that's the first thing I have to try to practice doing. That's really hard, by the way.
But isn't that's invaluable though.
Yeah.
The self learning, what
Yeah.
you discovered about yourself
Oh my
because of
gosh.
that, right?
Yeah.
So will we ever get to see that first book?
No. Um, no, but there are pieces of it.
Right.
There are definitely pieces and parts of it that are woven into the book itself because there
Okay.
are I do want to let the reader know that I'm still there.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
them to know that I am still in there with you. I'm still speaking to you as me.
Hmm.
And there are bits and pieces, and I do take a few liberties here and there to at least try to talk to them as the guy who, in the beginning, was that frustrated individual,
Right.
writing out of anger and things like that. So I
Yeah.
went through a tremendous amount of transformations over the 7.5 years, and it was just really profound. And I'll tell you the truth. And Casey, my girlfriend, can tell you this too. And she's been a nurse for 20 years. And I actually went into full blown depression over the whole thing.
No.
Yeah, and I gained quite a few pounds, and I've lost it since then. And everything just got turned inside out, upside down, and it got completely. I got destroyed by the process. I did,
Oh my God.
and because I was under all of these other assumptions and preconceived notions and whatnot about what
Right.
I thought it was going to be out there, because I've been a martial artist my whole life. I was an
Right.
instructor. I had schools, blah blah blah.
Right.
So
Right.
I had this whole preset ideas about what I thought it was, and then it turns out not only was I wrong, I was wildly wrong to a degree that the whole thing just completely upended me,
Yeah. But
and it destroyed me because I had so much more faith and so much more belief and so much more trust and all these things in how I thought the industry was behaving. Okay.
mhm.
And when I got out there, I was destroyed by what I found. And
Okay. But
yeah,
hang on a second. So what were your sources that led you to those beliefs? Was
I
it
mean,
magazines? Was it
good
the
question.
internet?
Yeah, good question.
What?
And I think that comes from the answer to that is it just comes from a lifetime of conditioning of being around your own groups of people.
Ah,
Right. You're
man.
going to, you're training at the, like in Florida. Florida is littered with martial arts. And that's another thing I
Yes.
came to find out later. When you go across the Midwest, there ain't nothing. Okay. Most of the martial arts, the larger percentage
Right.
of martial arts is like in your, Northeast,
Uh huh.
Southeast,
Yep.
West, Texas, California, Florida, New York, it's like that.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it starts to thin out like a bowl like this. It starts to thin out in the middle quite
Yeah.
rapidly once you
Yeah.
get closer to the middle, right? Your flyover states and all that, right?
Interesting.
Um, and so to go back to answering your question, it came from you know a spoiling. I was very spoiled because all the groups that I was around in Florida all those years for 20 years, they were all a bunch of great group of dudes. They were all open minded. They wanted to train. Everybody had great attitudes and all. And I thought
Hmm.
that's how it was everywhere. And I thought that they were all going to be a bunch of open-minded people that liked to hear new ideas, that wanted to cross-train, that wanted to do this art and that art, and they wanted to discuss and have open dialogue, blah blah blah. Right? No,
Right.
that did not happen. In fact, there were quite a few instances in my travels where even after I had mastered the art of explaining to them who I was, what I was doing, and why, and
Hmm.
how if I could get this right, it would actually get them more people in the door. Not only would it get them more people in the door if I got the book right, it would get them more of the right people.
Hmm.
And even after I explained that to them, they wanted no part of talking to me. And I'm like, what? I mean, I'm actually
Interesting.
using
Huh?
you, or I'm not using you, but I'm asking you to be part of this project, to give me your
Yeah.
sentiments, ideas, suggestions, opinions
Yeah.
on these questions, and then to see where we're at, and you get to be a part of this process. And I'm going to name you in the back of the book to say, hey, special thanks to these
Right.
people
Yeah.
for being contributors to the book, right?
Yeah.
So they were going to get credit, and they didn't want any part of it. And even recently, the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to talk to what I would call online influencing figureheads, these people,
Okay.
talking heads, these influencers.
Yeah.
They didn't want any part of it. I'm like, but why? Which, I'm literally trying to all of you guys are out there complaining about so much in martial arts.
Right.
I'm giving you a chance to be part of a possible solution to it, and you want no part of it. So then what's the problem? Like, then why are you complaining?
Yeah. Isn't
you
that
know?
interest? Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
Yeah.
Because I had a similar epiphany or an epiphanet, a small epiphany.
Yeah.
Um, so many people in the Jeet Kune world, and I was trying to stay away from art specificity for as long
Yeah.
as we could. But so many people in the JKD world who are supposedly dedicated and devoted to the art
Yeah.
have nothing positive to say about it. It's just bitch and moan, bitch and moan, bitch and
Yeah.
moan. And
Yeah.
I
And you
don't
know what?
understand that.
And I'm going to say right here on this live podcast, I was one of those guys. I was one of those guys in the JKD world that had nothing. That had nothing else better to do than to complain and moan and whatever about the JKD this or the JKD that. I'll admit it right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my journey across the U.S. and you know what it actually did, Dwight, is my journey across the U.S. Do you know what it ultimately did? And this is, and I'm not being, I don't know what the word is, but basically it circled me back around to JKD.
Aha. Interesting.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
all that,
Okay, wait,
yeah,
wait. So you said it circled you back around to JKD. So
yeah.
does that imply that there was some kind of movement away from JKD?
Yeah. So what happened was, is I spent a long time in uh, and we say JKD, but it was I spent okay. How can I put this to make it simple? So my first love in martial arts was JKD. My first love,
Hmm.
and that stuck with me,
Hmm.
my whole life. But
Hmm.
after like we'll say the late '90s, early 2000s ish, maybe
Hmm.
even the mid 2000s. I'd push it as far as the mid 2000s. I jumped off the JKD train because I couldn't stand the nonsense. The like you were saying, the bickering, the moaning, the this and that,
Right.
and all the fighting, and I
Right.
just couldn't take it anymore. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm going over here, and I'm going to do more Kali. I'm going to do more Silat, Capoeira. I'm going elsewhere. I don't want to be part of your guys' group anymore.
Hmm.
And so I jumped off that train, right? And so I still practiced. I still did as much as I could with the
Right.
people that I knew. Like I'd visit Chris Kent, I would visit, still train under my instructor in certain respects and things like that. So I was still practicing, but I wasn't involved in the ethos.
Yeah.
And what happened was I realized just how far ahead, even more so than I already did, but I realized just how far ahead Bruce Lee himself was at his time. And even now, if he were 30 years old right now, he'd still be another 100 years ahead of us in a specific respect.
Yes.
And I'm writing about that in the book. And that's
Yeah.
why I told you, hey, Dwight, did you hear, or not did you hear, but did you know about Plato's allegory of the cave and the hero's journey? Because it completely blew me away when I saw that video.
Hmm.
And I had learned about it in high school, but it was kind of like in passing. Nobody's paying attention. You're thinking about friends or whatever.
Right.
But I came to it and I'm like, this is insane. This is an almost exact parallel storyline of what happened to Bruce Lee. And it
Can,
was
can,
incredible.
okay, let's delve into that a little bit
Okay.
then and explain it to people.
Yep.
So
Uh,
Plato's
I've got it
cave.
right here if you want me to read
Okay,
it.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So, let's see here. Da-da-da-da. All right.
While you do that, I'm going to try to find a pen
Yeah,
so that I
I'll wait
can
for you.
so I can make notes while I get.
Okay, you ready?
Okay, there's ink. Yes, go.
Yeah. In Plato's allegory of the cave, prisoners are chained inside of a dark cave, facing a wall where they can see only shadows projected by objects behind them, coming from light casted by a fire. For them, these shadows are the entirety of their reality. They believe them to be the truth, unaware that they are only seeing a distorted reflection of the world beyond the cave. The story of the cave illustrates the painful yet transformative journey of transcending ignorance and reaching enlightenment and wisdom, moving from darkness into light and illusion to truth.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give too much away because that came right off of my pages. So, um, and I'll read the second paragraph, and that's all I'm going to read. Okay.
Okay.
The first time I heard the allegory of the cave, I was mystified by its deep philosophical and metaphorical meaning and stunned by its obvious implications to the human condition. The very first thing that came to mind for me was Bruce Lee's journey as a martial artist, and perhaps more importantly as a human being, and what he must have went through and experienced during his short but precious time on this planet. Just as a hero goes through trials and transformations, Bruce Lee's path to creating JKD or Jeet Kune was marked by his breaking away from tradition, confronting personal and societal limitations, and ultimately transcending old paradigms of martial arts, much like a hero's transformation through their journey. So that's,
Right.
yeah,
Right. See, so now this is what distresses me.
yeah,
How does something as impactful as that degenerate and deteriorate into, oh well, no, I know more than you. Oh, my teacher knows, my teacher was closer to Bruce Lee than your teacher. Oh, I did, into that pitiful, right, pitiful bickering,
okay,
when it is something as deep and possibly transformative as
yeah,
what you just described. You see
yeah,
what I'm saying?
I do. And I
So,
have a
so
response to that. Yeah.
okay, go.
The one of the things I discovered across every school, okay, maybe I shouldn't say that, not every school, but it was an extremely overwhelmingly, majority amount of schools,
Hmm.
um, was this idea or this, it's insularity. Insularity is another word for insulation. So insularity, it's an insular group. Every school, whether they're part of an organization or they're alone, ultimately through group dynamics and just the way we are as human beings, it becomes an insular group. It's insularity. So the insularity, the behavior of insularity, which means you're insulated from the outside.
Right,
No outside information or influence is allowed to come in.
right.
Okay. So everything is being conducted from within that sphere. And that's a
Yeah,
very small sphere. So
yep,
imagine a bunch of little bubbles
yeah.
around the US. There's these little spheres, these little operating little bubbles. That's the martial art world. So even though it's open to the public, it's actually closed.
Hmm.
Right. So every art system style in school that's operating is actually closed to the public. It's just that there's literal doors that are open. You can come in and sign up and take classes. But outside of that, it's a closed thing.
Yeah,
And that's due to insularity. And there's other reasons for that as well. And I'll go into that here shortly. But insularity is
yeah.
a big one. Okay. The other thing is the issue that I found, one of the top observations I discovered was the ongoing issue of the misuse, overuse, and abuse of language.
Mm,
Okay. So, one of the most common and pervasive statements or phrases or terms that keeps getting moved around because it's a popular, coin phrases and buzzwords, right?
right.
Um, is this idea of pressure testing.
Wait, hang on. Did
Yeah.
you see? I don't know if you saw it. I did a post yesterday about this,
Yeah.
and essentially it said this: before pressure testing was a thing, Bruce
Right.
Lee wrote about stages of a technique, and
Right.
stage three of a technique he called application under fighting conditions,
Right.
right? Which is the phrase I use because I kind of refuse to use pressure testing.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so here,
language.
yeah, language is very important, right? Now,
Yes.
if you just take the term pressure testing as it is, it sounds really whoa. Okay. It's got this whoa factor. Yeah, yeah, because you got a pressure test and everything is, it's all about reality and pressure testing this. And it's funny because you're like, well, wait a minute, hold on, let's back up a minute. Does that term even belong in our ethos?
Ah, as opposed to pressure
Go ahead.
training.
Yeah. Okay. Or there's a school over in New Hampshire. I believe he's in Concord now. His name is Rob Thibault, who runs Critical Defense Institute, and he told me what he uses is a different term, pressure tempering.
Okay.
Because you have to temper if you're going to pressure test a metal or a structure, you got to test the materials, right?
Hmm.
So he says, I say pressure tempering. And the problem with the term pressure testing is it heavily infers or implies a pass fail dynamic.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we are locked into a pass fail dynamic via this concept or idea known as pressure testing, doesn't that then also imply that there's going to be definitive finding?
Uh-huh.
Well,
Right.
how are you going to reconcile that against the fact
Hmm.
that when you change the conditions, you change the outcome of a situation?
Right.
And the conditions are always changing. If you're talking about reality and you're talking about, real self defense and street fighting and all this other stuff, well, you can't determine what the conditions are going to be, which means you definitely can't determine or predict the outcome, which makes pressure testing completely decertified as a statement.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Because
know,
here's the other thing is, if you're going to
right.
pressure test, let me say another thing.
Yeah.
If you're going to use the term pressure testing, how are you going to reconcile that against success to failure ratios across skill sets? Let me give you an example. Um, Somebody's doing like a low sewing machine stab to me, right? Like the low
Hmm.
stab. They
Hmm.
got their hand
Yeah.
under there like that. Um, and I'm up against the wall and I'm getting stabbed in class. I've got a foam knife or something like that, right? And even though the drill is to go as hard and as fast as you can, you're trying to get. How are you gathering the success to failure ratio across skill sets? So, are you actually gathering that data? Is the student gathering their own data? Is the instructor doing it? Who's doing it? Because if it's open ended, well, then you're not testing. If you're just saying, "Oh, you did good. You only got stabbed 16 times and not 40."
Right. Right.
Okay, well, again, then if there's a pass fail dynamic that's directly associated with the term or with the word test or
Yes.
testing,
Yes.
again, I want to know how are you going to reconcile that
That's so
against.
funny.
Yeah, and so and I've got a whole section. I'm actually looking at it right now. It's about 8 to 10 pages long.
Right.
I unpack the whole pressure testing mythos and the
Yeah.
whole word, the term, and the phrase, and I don't think it belongs in the language pipeline of what we're doing, because I think it's a misleading phrase and term.
Do you know that
Um,
when I ran my big school,
yeah.
we didn't use the word test. For
Okay.
what other people call testing, we called it evaluations,
Right.
right? An open and honest accounting of where you're at.
Right.
That's what we did.
Right.
Interesting. Because I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Language, really important.
Yeah. So that's a big one. So the pressure testing is the one that I unpacked because I strongly dislike it because of its inference and heavy implications of what it's trying to achieve, and you
Hmm.
can't do that. Like that's why the word training is way more important and applicable to what we're doing than testing. It's like, okay, fine. And again, what is like if you were to do a physical it's like when I think of the term pressure testing with a human being, you know
Yeah.
what I see in my mind? I don't see martial arts. I see a pilot in a centrifuge,
Really?
trying to train for G-force. That's what
Right.
I see.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, because it's
Yeah.
like, okay, let me also insert this. How are you going to reconcile the term or the phrase pressure testing against the fact that there's this thing called disparity of force dynamics or gross disparity of force dynamics? Meaning, after a certain power to weight ratio,
Hmm.
physics is going to reassert itself, and the test will ultimately fail no matter what. It doesn't matter how hard you trained,
Yeah. You know,
because once you
Joseph.
pass, yeah,
Okay. You know what's going to happen.
hmm,
Your critics are going to go, "Oh, he's just making." Well, I had a former friend who always mispronounced it. He would call it "much to do about nothing" because he wasn't that familiar with the correct phrase "much ado."
yeah.
Somebody's going to say, "Oh, it's just semantics. This is nothing but semantics." Right. And it's like, how important is it whether it's pressure testing or pressure training when everybody knows what you mean?
I'll
That's
tell you
what's going
this.
to happen.
I'll tell you this: if anybody wants to challenge me on it, I'm welcome to it, because I taught the world's hardest sport for 20 years. Gymnastics, and I guarantee you that what I did as an occupation, as a professional gymnastics coach,
Mhm.
training very high level athletes, you can't mess around with that sport. If you get something wrong, somebody breaks their neck.
Right. Right.
So I have to know a lot about what I'm doing and a lot about physics to understand what I'm doing. It's not just, oh, teach a little toddler forward rolls and I'm a professional. No, I taught all the way through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I know what I'm talking about, and that's how I was able to determine. Well, number one, I asked myself, do I really know what I'm talking about?
Right.
And then I went back and I'm like, wait, I taught what would
Right.
be still considered the
Right.
world's hardest sport,
Yeah.
and it takes a tremendous amount of training to get that right. You have to have
Yeah.
everything in the right place, and it's
Well, the
it's
reason,
very difficult to coach, and so you have to know a lot about how the physics work.
right. Well, these people will be critics simply
Yeah,
because everybody's a critic.
yeah, of course. Yeah, I
And
can't
and
stop that.
and they
Yeah,
themselves, they themselves have never done the type of deep thinking that you have about the
yeah,
topic.
Right.
So it's easy to criticize.
Right. And that's okay, because here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. I'm only asking the questions. I'm not necessarily trying to decertify or to invalidate the term
Yeah,
or phrase pressure testing. I'm
yeah,
simply saying I think that it heavily infers and implies a pass fail dynamic. And if that's the case, how are you going to reconcile that against, if you change the conditions, you change the outcome? Let me give you an example. If I'm wearing a t-shirt and shorts and I'm in the dojo and I'm training knife disarms, and I'm doing it in a pressure testing manner, how are you going to reconcile my success, even if I get, let's say I have an 80-20 success rate, 80-20 success ratio.
okay,
80% of the time I'm nailing it. I'm disarming a knife. I maybe took a few cuts, but I'm alive.
right,
Next thing you know, I come up to North Idaho. I have giant gloves on. I have a huge jacket where it
right.
comes down to my thighs. I can't feel my fingers. I'm frozen. I'm walking around in the snow. I have no balance, and the same attack comes at me. I guarantee you that the tests that I so-called passed in my pressure test are going to fail immediately. So that's what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
so you can test again. I think there needs to be a little bit more honesty and caveats and asterisk with that
Up,
term.
up there in Idaho. Oh, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna. So I'm being
Yeah.
entirely facetious about this, right? Um, so who's your favorite JKD notable? Is it Chris Kent or Burt Richardson?
Well, favorite is a bold and strong word, right?
Right.
Um,
Because I'm thinking that you have to have had these conversations with them.
I did,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you,
Yeah.
when it comes to if I say that I have a favorite, it's a favorite for a specific reason, and not
Hmm.
just a favorite. That's in
Right. Yeah.
Um, there are certain reasons, very profound reasons, why I adore Chris Kent as a JKD teacher, right? Because if you really want to understand the art and philosophy about what it is, what it's not, et cetera, he's one of the few guys that you can go to and walk out of there with that understanding
Hmm.
definitively.
Hmm.
You won't be confused anymore. If you go talk to him and you train with him, same goes with Burton, right? Same goes probably with you. Now, I haven't trained with you. I haven't actually, been around you. I can't make an opinion, but I would imagine you would be one of those people as well. So, and then so you've got different people that are contributing to that
Yeah.
in some part or some way, right? But I'll tell you my favorite JKD person when it comes to art, philosophy, training, teaching, and all that I personally met, that I spent time with. Um, that I think he's doing a phenomenal job with how he's approaching it, and the results that he gets from his own student base would probably be Kent Nelson.
Uh,
Yeah, I would have to say. Now again, not, but that's personal.
hmm.
That's a subjective opinion. I can't. That's just from my own personal of everything I've seen. As far as
Hmm.
right now, today,
Right.
in all of my travels and all that, right? I would say he's probably my favorite.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
but but I don't think that's fair. I have to be careful because he's only my favorite
No,
in a
no, no.
certain way.
That's what that. Yeah, that's why I said I was completely kidding.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and I hope and
right.
I hope people heard that and
Yeah,
nobody takes this
yeah,
seriously.
exactly,
You know what I
right.
mean? Right?
Yeah, yeah, because like for you, for instance, you're my favorite when it comes to the conversations of JKD, to the
Why, thank you.
debates, to the open
Yeah.
dialogue of it. There's nobody else, in my opinion, that's doing a better job.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate
and
that.
no, I mean that, and it's because and that's why I said, I have to put my foot in my mouth from like 6, 7 years ago, because I was one of those guys that was like, oh, Dwight, you're ruffling the feathers, you're needlessly, whatever. But it turns out, and again, I'm circling back around to JKD now in a profound way, because I'm like, man, had he not done that, it wouldn't have allowed me to listen to the conversations he's had with people, compared to my travels experiences and things that I've gathered, and go, wait a minute, I'm coming back around to this,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and so a lot has changed. A lot
Yeah.
has definitely changed and affected me.
Let's talk MMA and jujitsu for a little bit,
Sure.
right? And go back to what you wrote, right?
Yeah.
Which was that some of the worst teachers and instructors that I ran into were MMA and jujitsu teachers, simply because when confronted with simple questions regarding real life violence, they could only answer in one dimension. Can you describe that one dimension?
Well, the one dimension, their frame of reference is another way of saying one dimension. Um, their frame of reference was predominantly based out of the sport culture dynamic ethos, right? So
Mhm.
that pretty much should, answer the question. They were speaking from a very one-sided place, and it's not their fault. I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying, as far as the quality of what they were teaching and how they were teaching it, whenever they decided to start talking about self-defense,
Right.
right? If
Right.
they were just talking about sport, they were actually really good at it. They knew what, but if they were a sport-based school, a
Right.
predominantly sport-based school or combat sports school,
Hmm.
and then they would talk about, if they ever tried to veer off and change lanes in a class and start talking about self-defense,
Yeah.
when they never actually learned self-defense, they just learned the sport version of that art, like jiu-jitsu or MMA.
Ah.
There was a lot to be desired, because there were, and it wasn't their fault. I'm not blaming them or calling them out. I'm saying that that was not that was not their operating sphere. So they were speaking and they were teaching in ways that just obviously didn't make sense. There was a lot being left out,
Right. Huh.
and so they would try to say, okay, and this is the other thing I unpack in my book, which is a real fight. I heard that a million times across the country, and whether it would be a traditional school,
Yeah.
MMA school,
Yeah.
and everything in between.
Yeah.
Everybody, some way or another, brought up this whole quote unquote a real fight. And then I began to go, wait a minute, I would say that a lot too. So then I started asking people, what are you talking about, a real fight? What do you mean?
Right.
Tell me, do you mean any fight whatsoever? Because I can guarantee you they're all different. So if your approach of teaching, when you're teaching these skills, drills, and techniques, is that A, B, or C will work in a real fight or won't work in a real fight,
Hmm.
I ask you, what real fight are you talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, because I can guarantee you there's a lot of nonsense martial arts that actually does work in a real fight, because it has to do with where you are on the power curve. If you're in front of the power curve of violence, there's a lot more you're afforded, but when you're behind it, there's less. The reason why most of it doesn't work is because the person or the operator in question who's trying to defend themselves dramatically falls behind the power curve, so that's why they can't pull off a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
But if they're in front of it, they're in control. They're the ones that are actually initiating the power curve of violence against the bad guy.
I have a teacher who refers to that somewhat as he who accelerates the violence first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're the one that owns the power curve, there's a lot of stuff, and this has already been proven. I have a collection of hundreds of videos, MMA fights, combat sports, you name it, where these guys are pulling off some of the most ridiculous stuff that if I was caught doing it, they would be making fun of me. If I was caught doing the skills that I have collected off of YouTube and UFC fights and you name it,
Right.
stuff that would normally be ridiculed as bullshito, and they're doing it. They're pulling it off in a so-called real fight in combat sports. And I'm like, well, then how do you reconcile that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
how are you gonna unpack that? I just showed you that this ridiculous technique that if you saw me in my school doing it, you'd be laughing at me. And then I'll pull up the video and you're like, oh wait, my favorite UFC fighter did it in a so-called real fight, so I guess it's okay. you know. So it's like, you know, and I've done that a lot across the country, and I've said, well, look, you're saying what works and doesn't work in a real fight. Well, can I
Right.
show you a skill or a move that I think would work in a real fight? If we both agree that combat sports, especially the UFC or any kind of cage fighting, and you consider that to be a real fight, then can I show you a skill that I think would work in that real fight? Oh yeah, sure, no problem. So then I show them, and they're like, yeah, that's ridiculous. That would never work. And I'm like, hold my beer. I go get the video and I show that skill actually being pulled off quite,
Yeah.
you know, uh, easily in a UFC fight. And then they kind of look at you like, okay, well, that doesn't count because this and this and that, right? So then you
Ah.
realize what you're up against, right? You just realize that these people get it in their minds that it's not so much that they're ridiculing or trying to decertify what does and doesn't work in a real fight. They're just going along with the crowd that says that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, there's
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of that. it's like, and the other place where I see it
Yeah.
is in the JKD world, where a lot of people went along with the crowd,
Yeah.
and so now they're known as a Jeet Kune Do school. And what I do is I go and I take a look at their class schedule, right? And Jeet Kune Do doesn't appear at all.
Oh yeah.
There might be one weekly class that's called I'll make up something, applied combat, right?
Right.
But everything else is Muay Thai,
Right.
BJJ, and then there might be one weapons class,
Right.
but they're known as a Jeet Kune Do school.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And now we're
wow.
going back to the language problem. Okay, so the language problem, what I discovered in these 7.5 years, were three very distinct gaps that are highly persistent, and they're even more persistent when things aren't going necessarily well, economically and things like that. But what happens is you get this thing called a credibility gap,
Hmm.
the reliability gap, and the
Hmm.
viability gap.
Ah.
So the credibility gap is basically
Joseph, can I just tell you I love your language?
no problem. Yeah, absolutely. And I learned a lot. When I finally got to the end of my travels, and I was like, well, I need to get this thing done. This is taking too long, and I really want to get it over with. But I wanted to wait until the absolute last possible second to do it because I wanted to make sure that I felt there was nothing left to look at, that there was nothing left to ask, that I had overturned every stone that I could. I wanted to make
Mhm.
sure that that was over, that I would be so tired, you know.
Right.
And so once that happened, I was like, okay, well, now that I've seen everything, I've heard everything, and I've done everything, whatever, it's all collected. I got to make sense of this. So that's what's been taking so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's actually why it's been taken because I've been trying to make sense of it. I'm like, I've seen the things that I've seen, but I don't know what to call it. I don't know what to, I know what it is, but I don't know how to name it. And
Right.
so those three gaps are probably some of the most significant findings. The credibility gap describes the gap between the average consumer and what we're doing. Is it credible? The gap opens and closes based on the health and wellness of the industry and how they're putting themselves out there.
Hmm.
Okay, now, in let me give you an example of this credibility gap, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't want to give it away. But
Okay.
let's see here. I talk about contributing factors that led to the credibility gap. Which I'm not even going to go to the page. I'm just going to tell you.
Okay.
Do you remember some of those figures, martial art figures in we'll call it like the 70s and 80s that started coming out of the woodwork? And they were, for all intents and purposes, the McDojo guys, right? They were the fake, you know, like the George Dillmans and
Yeah.
these guys, right?
Well, I mean, a lot of that started in the '70s when kung fu, even the
That's right.
term kung fu
That's
became
right.
popular. So then you
Yeah.
put a kung fu sign under your karate sign,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So these guys start coming out of the woodwork and they start doing these fantastical things and this magic and these parlor tricks and it's all just, a dog and pony show, smoke and mirrors, whatever. It didn't take, and I go into this in the book, but it doesn't take that many people to completely off rail the credibility of martial arts. It only takes three, four, maybe not even a dozen people out of the tens of millions of people
Right. Yes.
that do martial arts. It only takes an extremely small handful of people to completely off rail the credibility. Why? Because it has to do with how people's minds attach to novelty, to new things, to conflict.
Hmm.
It's how our brains are attracted to these things.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
and so
even worse if it's very entertaining.
it's very entertaining, right? And so what happens
Yeah.
is, let's say you got 4 or 5, and I've got them in the book, but there's like 4 or 5 guys that I point out that had it not been, if they hadn't come out into the scene and done what they had done, there's a high likelihood that the martial art industry wouldn't have off railed so badly to the point that it opened up this credibility gap. That people basically, the public started questioning, okay, is this stuff really work? Is it really
Right.
real? Because
Right.
it looks like it's not, because and so it doesn't take too many people to off rail people's trust in what we do.
Hmm.
And so I go into that in the book. And then I go into some of the more modern examples of that. Like, for instance, now, people aren't going to like me when I say this, This is going to be controversial, and it's going to be very like I want to punch Joe in the face. But even if you combine all of the heretics or the the guys that came out and were basically doing a lot of parlor tricks and trying to sell it and kung fu whatever, right?
Right.
There is one group, one martial art group, and no, it's not JKD, but there is one martial art group, organization, art or whatever you want to call it, that has that if you were to compare like those 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys that off-railed martial arts and created a trust issue, there's one art that has done more damage than those guys combined because of the way it's taught, presented,
Mm-hmm.
the way that it's learned, and the way that it's perpetuated. And I am guilty of being one of those people that was part of that art, and I'm still part of that art, and I still love that art, and I'm still going to teach it. But there's one art that if you were to compare all the damage that was done from McDojo people and fake, masters and all this other stuff, there's one art that puts them all to shame. And I'm saying the way that it's been taught and the
Yeah.
way that it's been perpetuated and learned and all that, there's one, in my opinion, there's one that puts them all to shame.
Hmm. Um.
And it's the one that's probably, in my opinion, the most. It's to me, it's one of the most funnest arts I've ever done, and I'm always going to do it. And
Krav Maga.
but what's that?
Krav Maga.
No, but it's the one that it's the one that's probably done the most damage in terms of that credibility, the credibility gap. It's created a larger credibility gap because of the way it's being taught, presented, and whatnot. And it's Filipino martial arts.
Ah. Yeah. See, I would never thought because of my dedication to Kali.
And you
I
see
would
what I'm
never
getting
thought.
at? Like that's
Right.
so
Right.
we're talking about me ripping my heart out, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, and again, I'm trying to be as objective, and that's hard, Dwight. That was really hard for me to do that in the beginning, to try to figure out how can I be objective, unbiased,
Yeah.
take an outside look at this
Yeah.
and scrutinize something that I love. Because it's not easy. I challenge anybody to do what I did and try
Yeah.
to get as far, But um, yeah.
And
So
just so
now
everybody knows, I wasn't serious about Krav Maga. Okay.
I know, right? Exactly. Whoa,
Right.
whoa.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and again, so I still love, FMA. In fact, I went overseas and I went to Mindanao with a friend of mine to teach the Filipino police their own art back to them
You
during
know,
my travels. Yeah, we went overseas when we were going across. We went to 5
interesting.
countries. We were in Mindanao,
Interesting.
Philippines, and we went over.
Yeah.
And this was crazy. This was a very nerve-wracking experience for me. We went over there with my buddy Nate, Blood and Bones Tactical, and he's like, "Hey, you want to join me? We're going to go on base. We're going to teach these guys Filipino martial arts." And I'm like, "You're kidding?" He's like, "No." Oh, okay, let's go do that. I
Right.
didn't know what I was getting into. We're going through military checkpoints, the whole thing. Okay, everywhere we went, there was guns, rifles, checkpoints, you name it. Everywhere we went, it was a scary part of the Philippines, man. And I was kind of on edge a little bit. I'm like, wow, I've never been in a country where there was this many guns out in the open like this. That was nerve wracking. But
Yeah.
so we go there and we go on base, and we had to go through a checkpoint. We had to go and see the general. Um, and I don't remember if these guys were actual like army or police or what. I think they were police and army or something like that. I can't remember, but I have pictures of it, some video of it, and I didn't want to release any of that because I wanted to respect the privacy of those guys, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I have a couple of pictures online, but I didn't put everything out there. And, while we were there, I'm thinking, man, I'm actually teaching all of the stuff that I got ridiculed for back in the States. And I'm teaching it to these guys so they can literally come home today
Hmm.
when they have to go out on a mission. Like it was really surreal.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of weight on me and everybody that was there. Casey was there. And I'm like, I can't believe it. So we're not teaching them Krav Maga. We're teaching them Filipino martial arts. And that's how these guys are going to survive. And so I had to take a much more serious approach to how I was going to help these guys with Nate.
Right.
And
Right.
so if anybody wants to know the legitimacy of Filipino martial arts, it's there because it's a battle-born art. Okay.
Hmm.
And it's already been proven to work, but we just keep circling back around to delegitimizing Filipino martial arts. But that's because a lot of people that do that really don't know what they're talking about. And um, over here in the States, if something isn't fun, people aren't going to do it.
Yeah.
So we have to put the fun factor on it. Otherwise, they're not going to pay their hard-earned money to do it. So
Hmm.
it's a process, and but that had a really profound impact on me. While we were there, we went to the house of one of the rebel leaders.
I'm surprised you made it back.
I am too.
You're
While
in
we were,
Mindanao
yeah,
going
yeah,
to.
Mindanao, we were going to go on a zip line. We were going to go on a zip line for fun, and while we were there, one of the we were with a congresswoman, and she goes, yeah, you probably don't want to do that because it was either the day before or that day, hours earlier. Some guy, a foreigner, was going down the zip line, and he was too loud, and he got shot and killed by the rebels. So yeah,
You know,
so
40, going on 43 years ago,
yeah,
when I first started training with Dan and Asano, I heard about the rebels and the resistance in Mindanao.
yeah, yeah, it's real. Yeah, I have a firsthand experience now of that whole
Yeah,
process, and I enjoyed
yeah,
it. Believe
yeah,
it, I did. I was on edge
yeah.
because I was in a very foreign country where we were getting stared down, Dwight. We were
Of
not getting
course,
good looks. Okay,
of course,
so that really, but I knew I was safe because Nate had our back, and I knew we were with good people, right? But
hmm,
and I got crazy sick when I got there too. I was so dumb because I thought I'm gonna brush my teeth with the hotel water. And I got so sick, and we went to Thailand after that, and I was still
yeah.
recovering, and so almost the first full week in Thailand, I couldn't train,
Oh man,
um, but it was quite a process. But anyway, all that to say this, I went through a lot to try to gather the information for this book to try to get it as right as I could, and almost no stone was left unturned. And there's a
hmm,
lot that we're getting right, but there's a little bit more that we're not getting right. And I don't mean wrong. I'm just saying that we're not. The language is a big problem. The use of language, especially with this pressure testing thing. And it's like, well, I've heard this before. Pressure testing against a live resisting opponent. Well, a live resisting opponent is what you find on a mat. That's not what you find during a traffic stop that goes south. Okay, I mean, when stuff really hits the fan and it's a life or death thing, there's no resistance. That's going to be,
right,
you know, somebody's not going home.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I don't like the language because I think it heavily infers things that, it's like, no, I'm not dealing with a live resisting opponent. I'm dealing with an unpredictable violent attacker who has lost all moral code.
yeah.
And so, how are you going to reconcile those terms and phrases against that? So, you know what I mean? Like,
But
and so people, yeah,
but what about so I'm not a big believer in catchphrases unless they actually make sense.
yeah, right,
And right,
absolutely,
and
yeah,
so there's a Bruce Lee catchphrase about um uh recreating, no, approximating the reality of the situation,
yeah,
right, in training.
yeah,
You see, so the idea of resist an opponent, because now you bring in the factor of language
yeah.
that really does change everything.
Well, here, let me give you another example. The whole situational awareness phrase.
Uh huh.
Do you know where situational awareness originally came from?
No.
It's either a World War One or World War Two aviation term.
Okay.
Yeah, it came
Huh.
from aviation. It came from dogfighting.
Huh. Yeah.
And it was a term that, and I have it packed in here somewhere. I don't want to go looking for it, but it's basically, you can look it up. It's an aviation term. It's either from just like aviation, visual navigation in the air, or it's a dogfighting term. I can't remember which one it is or both,
Right.
but in my opinion, we all have situational awareness. When I cross the road, I have situational awareness. So it's not that we have an absence of situational awareness. What we actually have a problem with is, let's see, what's the opposite of that? Is inattentional blindness. And you should
In
look that
in
inattentional blindness.
inattentional.
Yeah,
Inattentional.
inattentional blindness. So the
Okay.
opposite of if I have situational awareness,
Uh huh.
why does it fail? The reason why situational awareness fails is because of inattentional blindness.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
then, so the remedy for inattentional blindness is constant surveillance. Is
Right. So the first thing we have to understand is there are these two things known as hyper arousal and
okay,
hypo arousal.
okay,
Hyper meaning high, hypo meaning low. Okay.
okay,
Hyper arousal is when your senses are at their peak, or they're over operating.
right,
They're like, they're ready to explode.
yeah,
Hypo arousal is when you go into sleep mode.
okay,
You're awake, but your brain just goes like into sleep
yeah,
mode.
yeah,
You're shutting everything out around you. You're going into like there's another I can't remember the other two, but basically you're going into like a sleep mode. You're just you don't see anything around you. You're just kind of like hypo arousal. You're checked out.
yeah,
Okay.
uh
So
huh,
if you're in a hypo aroused state and you're completely checked out, right? That that's actually what's happening to people. It's not so much that they have a problem with situational awareness. They do
right,
have that. But what
yeah,
happens is that people get locked into something called normalcy bias.
okay,
And normalcy bias is basically, and this is one of the reasons why most people don't do martial arts. This is one of the factors that I found
right,
as to why most people don't do martial arts and self defense, because they get locked into normalcy bias. And normalcy bias is basically to say that every day keeps being the same. I go to
right,
work, I come home, I eat, sleep. It's
right,
the same routine over and over again. And if those routines keep proving that nothing happens, then that's what I expect. So I fall into normalcy bias.
okay. So
Yeah.
as you describe all that, my mind flashes back to a typical Friday for me
Yeah.
involves getting on the train, right? The Miami Metro rail
Yeah.
to go to the airport station to then get on the county train to
Yeah.
take me into Broward County,
Right.
right? So I'm see everything that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it
Yeah.
because there's the normalcy,
Yeah.
right? And
It's routine.
nobody now everybody is aware that they're on the train because well they don't want to miss their stop. They got to get off at their stop. But are they paying attention?
Right now, so let me
Or
let me finish what I was saying though. Like the hyper and hypo arousal, in between those two arousal states is this thing called your window of tolerance. When
ah,
when people find that ebb and flow of their
right,
window of tolerance, it creates
right,
like what we'll call a comfort zone of tolerance.
right.
Once people get locked into that comfort zone of tolerance or that window of tolerance, it's hard, really hard to get them to go into situational awareness, you know,
Yeah,
because what happens is if the brain has not been properly trained to deal with hyperarousal, you're overexciting certain aspects of your physiology. You can't deal with it.
mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
can't deal with it on that level every day. You're overstimulated. It's an overstimulated um, sense of your surroundings. You just can't deal with it.
Yeah,
You're in an overstimulated state. So training is the purpose of training martial arts is to help you retrain your window of tolerance. So now you can go out on those trains and buses and whatever, and you
yeah,
can deal with keeping a very good eye on your surroundings. And it's just like a deer. A deer is on constant lookout. He's on constant lookout for predators.
right.
It's just how he functions, right? So the training allows us to recalibrate our window of tolerance so that we
Yeah.
can deal with taking in more information and still be comfortable.
Are people, is the average person interested enough in that we could package and sell that to them?
It'd be a hard sell,
Think
right?
so.
It'd be a hard sell
But isn't
because
that unfortunate?
it's unfortunate, and I'll tell you a story about me and Casey when we tried to open up a school in Rapid City, South Dakota, and we closed it just behind the 2 year mark because we just couldn't do it anymore. It was just, and I'll unpack that here more in a minute. But basically, when we had that school, I thought now that I've learned everything that I've learned up to that point, at least about
Mhm.
the do's and don'ts and the rights and wrongs of the martial arts industry and all that. And this would be my third or fourth time around at opening school. I'm like, how can I get this wrong? How could I get this wrong this time? I've learned so much across the country and I know what to do and what not to do, whatever.
Right.
We open the school and in less than 2 years it closes, right? And and the whole time I'm thinking, I just don't know how I got that wrong. We lost a lot of money. And I'm not going to go into the number, but it was a lot. And But what happened is that at the end of the day, and I discovered this later, the brain, the human brain, is a survival organ. If you try to tell it that it has to operate at this new level before you train it to do so, it's going to revert. It's going to try to go into. It's going to back out.
Hmm.
They people can't deal with it. They can't take it. That normalcy bias really sets in, and if you force people into a new state, a new arousal state, and they're not ready for it yet, the brain is a survival mechanism that will trigger them to basically back out. And we had opened up this school that was going to solve lots of problems. We had an indoor dry fire um, tactical thing we did for firearm self defense. We had the regular martial art classes, self defense. We actually had the entire facility was leaning more towards the female census. So most of our classes were leaning towards the females, because I thought, well, nobody's trying to solve that problem, so why
Right.
don't we do that?
Right.
Um, and that failed miserably, because what happens was people they just can't operate like that. So this is where I go back into the 8 branches of martial arts. Depending on what branch you're in, will have a lot to do with how or why you stick with it, right? So there are 8, and this is another thing that I discovered along the way. There's 8 unique branches of martial arts that all martial arts are operating out of. They're either operating out of one or a combination of these 8. So let me give you an example. If you're somebody who is very averse to physical contact, you are you're somebody who does not have any kind of you basically have an aversion to violence. Period. Like, you just don't
Yeah.
like it. Okay.
Yeah.
You're obviously not going to go to schools that are trying to prepare you for violence, because you have an aversion. You have a political aversion, you have a behavioral aversion, you have a mental aversion, you have an aversion to violence. You're not going to sign up at the school that you actually need to go to because you have these
Right.
dispositions on violence.
Right.
So what
Yeah.
are you going
Yeah.
to do? You're going to go to the schools that resonate with you, that don't do that. And that's where this gets really complicated, because you're like, yeah, but you're so meek and you're so vulnerable that logic would have it that you should be training over here.
Right. Yes. Logic would.
Okay. And so I started to see this, and I'm like, what is going on? Like this, okay, how do you solve that? I mean, it was a process trying to figure out, like, basically, how do you get the right people in the right seats,
Yeah.
enough where it would make a difference across the spectrum of the martial art industry, right? Because you got a
Right.
lot of people out there that are training and doing martial arts in a multitude of schools and styles, but you
It,
can tell a lot of them aren't supposed to be there.
yeah.
You know,
Is it a mistake, Joseph, in running a school to try to be everything to everyone?
it increases, exponentially increases the credibility gap.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It increases the credibility gap, because then what happens is that, let me share something with you in one of my top 15 observations. And let's see, let's see. Um, so just real quick, the oh gosh, I had it here somewhere. It was basically, because I'm going to take too long trying to find it, but basically the overwhelming majority of the industry, which is the business side of teaching,
Hmm.
is um, leaning unreasonably too far to the consumer. They're bending to the consumer to an unreasonable or unrealistic degree.
Hmm, that's an interesting statement.
Yeah. So what happens is, everybody's well-meaning. Everybody's trying their best to do the right thing, to teach
Yeah.
well, to
Yeah.
run a good business. They're all trying earnestly to get this right.
Right.
The problem is that because they need butts in the seats to pay rent, their business practices and the arts they teach and etc., it leans unrealistically too far into the consumer. They're giving into them too much. And
As
that,
opposed as opposed to what?
as opposed to trying to inspire the client, student, customer, consumer, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
come up a little bit and meet me here. Show a
Ah,
little bit of effort. Show a little bit of effort, and I'll come down and get you.
right.
But I want to see if you want to actually do that. And instead of me climbing down that ladder, getting underneath you and pushing you up the like,
Huh.
I think it's an unreason. It's like we're leaning too hard into the consumer because we're so desperate to
Right.
try to do what we're doing,
Right.
and
Yeah.
the unintended consequences of that is, well, and then we turn around and call them lazy. So it's like, no, you
Right.
facilitated their laziness because you met them too far down there.
Yeah. This is a complaint that you'll hear people express as instructors who water it down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's another thing. And I used to say that. I used to say that. And in some small, tiny part, I still do kind of say that. But I've learned something now, of the whole watering down thing, right? Well, let me give you an example from the sport that I coached, which was a very hard sport. And I had to make sure that if I didn't get the learning scaffolding right in the beginning years,
Hmm.
they had no chance. So there was a lot of technique, skills, and drills that I had to quote unquote water down
Right.
in order to ensure their success and progress.
Huh.
Right?
Yeah.
If I had I not done that, I can tell you that there was a large number of athletes that wouldn't have made it as far as they did. Had I not thinned out that process a little bit so they could absorb it better.
Right.
You see what I'm getting at? There's people that,
Yeah.
okay, it's the difference between drinking water and syrup.
Yeah. For me, what it boils down to really
Yeah.
is knowing how to teach your bloody art.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Right. So if it's a case by case thing. Look, if
Yeah.
I try to teach my art system or style to its most, prominent degree, like to the most it is. But it's case by case. If somebody comes into me and they see me, I've got to treat this like a case. Let me give you another example here. I used to be a drill collector. You know how in martial arts we used to say technique collector?
Yeah.
Well, in the gymnastic world, you were a drill collector. You were somebody who relied on drills way too much. Are you there?
Yeah. Uh huh.
Yeah. You relied on drills way too much, right? And you were forgetting about the athlete in front of you. You weren't considering who
Right.
they were, where they came from, their body type, their physiological makeup, all this, their reaction time. You weren't considering anything. You were just like, yep, if I do this drill, they'll get it. That was like for the first 10 years of my career. The last 10 or 15 years of my career, what I did is I learned a very hard lesson that the drills, I need to see who I'm dealing with first. People would come up to me and be like, Coach Joe, what's the best drill for like a handstand? And I'd look at them and go, well, I need to see who I'm dealing with. That was the pinnacle. That's where I got to. That was the top graduated level of my coaching prowess, was that I'm like, look, I'm not thinking about drills right now. Who is she? Tell me
Hmm.
who this athlete is. I need to see them. I'll
Hmm.
tell you what drill is best as soon as I see this person first. Before that, I didn't even consider that. It was, nope, I'm going to do this drill and that drill. And then I would run into all these problems, all these progressional errors because I wasn't considering the athlete.
Right. Right. Huh.
So the problem is that there's a lot of that going on. So the student is getting left behind in most of these cases because the art is being perpetuated first, the style is being perpetuated first, the business is being perpetuated first. There's all these firsts
Yeah.
that are coming before the consideration of the student.
It's interesting that you say that because I
Yeah.
see that particularly in the JKD world where
Oh,
the
hands down.
the emphasis is on the drills,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
it's
and that's why I appreciated Chris Kent so much, because when I first met him in person was we go to his school, and the first day he just sits down and talks with me. We didn't train.
right,
He wanted to know who he was dealing with,
right, yeah,
and I
yeah,
was like, bravo,
hmm,
because there was a chance, at least in some part, that he was like, I don't think I want to deal with this guy,
exactly,
and I appreciate him for that. He actually did what I did in coaching, and I'm like, wow.
yeah,
But how few do that, because you can't afford it if you're running a business,
right,
and it's an open door thing.
yeah, yeah,
It's going to take too long to
yeah.
assess.
They are afraid to use professional integrity.
Yeah,
They
very
really
much
are.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah, very much so. Now, again, most of them were well-meaning and they were trying to do the right thing, but the problem was that there was such there was such an absence of another well-meaning process that they could have taken, because again, that normalcy bias kicks in. Even
Yeah.
with a business as a martial arts instructor, you still are subject to that normalcy bias. So you're not going to be thinking about this stuff, and that's why I'm writing the book, because so many things that aren't being thought about, I want to bring up in this book so that it can be thought about.
Right.
Because I'm not blaming anybody, I'm not calling anyone out. I'm just saying, look, there's a lot of things that aren't being considered, thought about. There's no forethought or whatever. And what
Mhm.
if I could put that in a book and have those people go,
Yeah.
like you did today, like, oh wow, okay, yeah, and give a little critical thought and give a little, contemplation, and say
Yeah.
maybe we should reconsider this or that. And the book actually is not for guys like you and me. I did not write the book for grassroots martial artists. I didn't do that. And that was in the beginning. In the beginning, I wrote it for those, for us. I
Mhm.
had to change that stance, and I had to basically completely rearrange the Rubik's Cube of this book, because I was talking to the wrong audience. The audience who are us, and it's no offense to us, we're not going to listen. Okay? We are
Yeah.
not going to listen to you. Okay? We've
But
already got it figured out. We've been doing this forever. I know more than
yeah.
you do, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Okay?
Yeah.
So I had to go back and rewrite everything and lean it towards the student who's at their 0 or 3rd year.
Right. Okay.
0 to 3rd year student. Because why? Because after that 3rd or 4th year, somewhere in that time frame, the indoctrination starts to set in, the style bias starts to set in.
Hmm.
All these anchoring things start to hit the ground.
Hmm.
I got to get to them before that.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
book, that's the reason for the book, is to try to get to them before that sets in. Now, in saying that, I still encourage the readers to find their center art. So,
Ah,
in my opinion, based on all the things that I've been through and learned and observed and everything under that whole thing, 7.5 years, I would be willing to bet, gun to my head, that I've actually figured out the Rosetta Stone of understanding all of this. And I can't tell you, because I would be
fine.
giving it away. I
That's
can't
fine.
tell you, and it's killing me.
That's fine. No,
But
no, no, no,
yeah,
no.
and
I'm
but I'm
patient. I'll wait
I,
for the book that's not even designed for me.
right, and no, and
I'll buy it.
again, we are going to read it. You're going to read. Everybody's going to read it. But I'm saying in the beginning of the book,
Yeah.
okay, it's actually saying this book is not written for you. It's written for these guys. But I'm inviting you also, the grassroots guys, to come in and read this.
Yeah.
Please
Oh, for sure. I'm good.
follow me
Yeah.
on this journey and learn something.
Yes.
But it's not written for
Yes.
you. So the whole thing is like, let me give you an example, okay? And I'm actually going to read to you, and it probably will change a little bit, but I'll read to you the very first paragraph from the book, the very first page. The first thing that I say, okay? Um, Within the pages of this book lies a constellation of answers, factors, reasons, suggestions, and theoretical conclusions that I hope you will find useful, insightful, and perhaps more importantly, thought provoking. That's the first sentence.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the idea, is to and I'll just continue this real quick. None of which were founded in absolutism or finality. My intention in writing this book was and remains to serve as a conceptual framework for understanding the endless maze of martial arts in the self-defense world. And I'll just leave it at that. And so
Right.
basically, it's to say, look, I'm trying to be honest here, and I'm trying to open it up, and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I like that opening.
yeah.
I like that opening.
So that first paragraph should, or that first set of words, that should sort of give you an idea of how
Right.
this is going to flow, right? And
Hmm.
the words that I'm using, and the tone that I'm taking,
Yeah.
and the structure that I'm putting this in,
Yeah.
and things like that. Okay,
Well,
and
I'll tell
how
you
I
one thing, Joseph. We can tell it wasn't written by AI.
yeah. I mean, now I'm going to be honest with you. I leaned into to chat for things like structure.
Uh huh.
Okay, I leaned into it for things like flow and
Yeah.
things like that. For
Yeah.
the scaffolding, I used
Yes.
chat to help me with the scaffolding of the book.
That's
But
how
it's
it's
my
supposed
words.
to be
I wrote
used.
it.
Yes.
Because
That's
the
how
thing
it's
is now,
supposed to be used.
yeah, and it's like, so it's an assistant. It's a writing assistant, or
Right.
you could even call it like a ghost writing assistant, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But outside of that, no, this is my book. And I tell the reader, look, at the end of this isn't my book anymore, it's yours.
Hmm.
And I invite the reader to say, hey, look, because none of this was written in finality or absolutism, and the absolutism is another teaching problem, by the way. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Um, I invite them to say, hey, take what you've got here and I want
Yeah.
you to go forward with it. I want you to see what you can do. Show me how wrong I was or how right I was
Right.
or everything in between. If I got something wrong, I want you to go find it. And
Yeah.
but this was how this was all collected, and the whole and the 5 points that I collected information from. This is probably important. Was language. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, optics, language, behavior.
Okay.
Optics, language, behavior, messaging, results. So that's how I took all my information in.
I know, man. That sounds like a marketing book to me.
Right. But it's like but those were the points that I was pulling information in
Right.
from.
Oh, of
Those were
course.
the
Of course.
pipelines.
Yeah.
So I observed, I participated.
Yeah.
Okay, I listened.
Yeah.
I sat in schools as a consumer. I sat in schools as a student. I participated in schools as a student. I talked to instructors. You know what I mean? Like, so I tried really hard to get this right. And
Mhm.
um and it was not an easy process. It put me through a lot. I went through all 4 seasons, all 4 emotional seasons doing it. Uh and it was all to try to answer some of the most important questions that are being posed today. And I enjoyed it. I hated it. I, I learned a lot from it.
Right.
Um, and I hope that it definitely helps the people who end up picking it. Now, there's going to be people that pick it up and that probably want to burn it. But hey,
Yeah.
what can I say?
But
Um,
but when you were reading it, I had another image flash into my mind of I think it's Linda Lee's introduction to the Tao of Jeet Kune
yeah,
about what to find on the pages and what to do with it afterwards.
yeah,
You know,
right,
that type of thing.
yeah,
So you mentioned briefly that when you went to see Chris Kent, he sat down and talked to you. He didn't try to get you on the
no,
training floor immediately.
yeah.
So besides Chris, is there anybody else out there that I doubt very much there's anybody who's doing it exactly correct, but is there anybody else out getting close?
As far as what? As far as how he did that?
But no, as far as what through your observations and conclusions is the approach that the optimal approach to be used.
Well, I would say no, just because they're unaware. So it's not because
Mhm.
people are, you know, willfully not doing that.
Yeah.
It's because they don't know. And so, and that's the other thing, the institutional inertia. I talk about that in the book. So the martial art industry, by and large, and for the most part, suffers from what's known as institutional inertia.
Okay.
And what that basically is in short, in the most layman's terms way, we've always done it this way.
Right.
So
Right.
we're still operating off of that um, belief, understanding, way of doing things, whatever you want to call it. It's
Yeah.
we've always done it that way, and that you know approach, if it keeps working, if it's not broke, don't fix it, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So
But is it
nobody's gonna,
working?
yeah, because it's working now. It's working according to their perceptions.
Right. Right.
So it's like based on my observations. Of course, I could say that it's working, yeah, because you know that machine has been turning for so long.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but is it actually producing the results that it could? No, not even close. Um, because most people are too afraid
Mhm.
of losing their livelihoods, their reputations, all this stuff if they try to change it.
Right. Right.
I don't want to change it, Joe. This is the way things are done, and this is what the public understands. And we have to put karate on the building, but teach Muay Thai inside. I mean, I'm sorry. And
Yeah. I used to say to people, I used to go, well, okay. I go, but if let's say, right,
yeah,
for lack of a different way of expressing it, that Bruce Lee is the role model for all of this, right? When did Bruce Lee ever say or think, I have to give the public what the public wants?
I don't remember anything like that. I don't. In fact, if you just take a very vague look at his life, you'll know that that's not,
Right,
that's not what he was trying to
right.
do at all.
And but
The
he
guy
ends
was a
up,
disruptor. I mean, he was an absolute
yes,
disruptor, and
yes.
it's like, and we have to thank him in so many respects. And that's what I say. I'm coming back around.
Hmm.
to getting back on the JKD train, not with the politics. I'm
Hmm.
saying I'm getting back on the train where I want to get on the car, on the
Yeah,
train car. That's the philosophy, the art,
yeah,
the
yeah.
getting back to myself, the self discovery, the transcendence, the
Yes,
allegory of the cave. I want to get on that car of that
yes.
train. Okay.
I'm with
And
you.
yeah. And so I want to circle back around to that because I enjoyed my life more when I was doing that.
Right.
And it's like, no, I don't want to have to think about a real fight all the time. No, I don't want to have to, because it's mentally taxing. And when me and Casey went to this place called the place I mentioned before, Critical Defense Institute in New Hampshire. We did a 6-week intensive force on force um, training course.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, this answers it. If people just came here to this place and they did the full 6 weeks nonstop back to back course of this Force on Force Institute, they would learn very quickly why you can't open up a business like that and expect to live off of it. Like, I say that to say this: you can't train for real.
Right, because
You can't do.
train
Yeah,
train for real is oxymoronic,
right.
right? Because real is real and training is training.
Thank you. And it's like, guys, I know we're all trying to solve that problem. We're all trying to round out the corners of trying to
Yeah,
figure out what works and doesn't work in a real fight. I get it. I get it. I want to make sure that I only do things that work in a real fight. I get it.
yeah.
Okay. But I think we've lost a lot along the way in trying to do that. Okay. And it's like in that post that I said that you saw, you know,
Hmm.
um, there's too much to be desired now because we got so hyper focused and so obsessed over this real fight thing. And I'm like, man, let me give you another example. Over my travels and all my investigations, the and I love jujitsu and I love MMA, but I'm going to say this: as it is right now, especially in the Western world in the U.S., the MMA and jujitsu spheres basically do not allow for martial arts. They don't allow it. They don't allow for it. And let me
Explain that.
expand on that. So
Yeah.
the MMA and jiu-jitsu spheres do not allow for martial arts. So if you're doing martial arts, kale, arnisa, eskrima, capoeira, fencing, I don't care. Name
Yeah.
a thousand different arts, martial
Right.
arts.
Right.
If you're doing that, those spheres don't allow for that. Their rhetoric and their narrative does not allow for that. Meaning, if you're doing those things, that's going to be the first group that ridicules and criticizes you because it has nothing to do with the real fight.
Hmm.
So those fears don't allow for that. It makes it unfun.
Yeah.
You can't be yourself. You can't express yourself. You can't train just for fun. You can't do any of this stuff. The only table that you're allowed to be at, the cool kids lunch table, is the MMA and jiu-jitsu one. And I'm like, no. And I thought that for years. I'm like, no, we got to stop all this martial art nonsense. We need to go over on the real side of things. And I learned a hard lesson. I learned a hard lesson from that. You can't. It's unsustainable. It's completely and totally you can't train like these guys are spoiled because most of them, or a lot of them anyway, they're training at such a risk level, you know,
Hmm.
and the rate of injuries
Right.
is almost parallel with the rate of the increase of the culture itself of MMA and jiu-jitsu. You
Yeah.
got guys getting their necks snapped, their knees blown, their ankles broken, their arms broken, and everybody's wearing this stuff like a badge of superiority.
Yeah.
So we have lost our way.
Yeah.
Okay, the moral
And
the
and
moral standard has been removed
right.
from
But
those
are they
equations. Yeah.
staying in business because of the popularity level of MMA and jiu-jitsu?
What's that?
Are they staying in business because of the popularity level?
Yeah, in part.
Okay.
In part, for sure. And it's like, so what happens is that, when you get a new fad or a trend or whatever,
Right.
it gives people who would not normally have had a chance to get involved in something to get involved in something because
Hmm.
now it's this new thing. It's novel. It's my friends are doing it. It's peer
Right.
pressure, peer group dynamics.
Right.
So they're like, well, 5 out of the 6 friends that I've ever had are now doing this thing. So I at least need to go try it.
Yeah.
And so they end up going and trying it, and then they have
Right.
to contend with, you know, um, once you get immersed in that group or that culture of that school, the MMA and jiu-jitsu schools who operate like that at a high risk level, you have to wonder, well, if I back out now, what are people going to think of me? And I don't want my friends to think less of me if I don't
That's
have the,
true.
Yeah, and so there's a
Interesting.
lot of peer group
Right.
dynamics
Yeah.
within that thing. So it's more about who the those fears attract at this point. They don't attract what I would consider the overwhelming majority of people that are in those spheres are not. Um, you could call them martial artists, but I personally don't call them that because I say, well, I have an opinion on what I think a martial artist is,
Hmm.
and I think you guys are martial arts practitioners, enthusiasts, competitors, etc. But I wouldn't lean as heavy into calling you a martial artist because of the narrow,
Yeah.
the narrow track that you're working on.
Yeah. I hear you.
So
Yeah.
it's just hard to agree to calling them that. Even though I would,
Right.
it's just it's on the thinner side of that because it's like it's like okay, I'm gonna grudgingly accept that you're also a martial artist, but it's on the thinner side because
Yeah.
you're again you're it's a one track thing.
Okay. All right. Let's wrap this up with
Yeah.
this. What what name me two things that you think JKD people spend too much time discussing or arguing about?
Well, just discussing and arguing for sure. I mean, you know, but as far as context, like the actual
Yeah.
subject matter,
Yeah.
and these things,
Yeah.
or like the topics, we'll say.
Yeah.
Um, well, number one has been the ongoing debate of just the original versus the concepts, which I think, in my opinion, just from my point of view, it seems like it's starting to, it has started to slowly level off.
Yeah. No.
And
Nobody.
there's
Nobody even, from what I've seen, nobody
yeah,
even bothers
yeah, it
to
seems to have leveled
with
off,
the
right?
prefix or the suffix
That's right.
anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just seems to have leveled off to a more manageable degree. We'll put it that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I won't really include that, but that would have been one of them. But I would say probably that um, it's tough because I don't pay too much attention to those groups and spheres as much as I used to. But it's I think it's well. Here you go, because we are now in the era of combat sports, and we're at that peak of that. There's new conversations, debates, arguments, and mud throwing that as far because you're asking me about JKD and the topics, right? And
Yeah.
the most argued stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I think because those things are at a much more noticeable level, the MMA and jiu-jitsu stuff, that it's now gone back from being the arguments, the debates and topics are more about, the what works and doesn't work issue.
Right.
So they're arguing more about the actual tactical application of JKD at this point because of the influence of combat sports.
Hmm.
The conversations or debates and arguments have shifted to the actual tactical application of JKD,
Yeah.
and I'm going to argue that um, I would say the overwhelming majority amount of JKD does actually work in a so-called real fight now because we've already examined it and seen it and observed it in combat sports. It's just that you have to have already done JKD to know to see it.
Yes.
And one simple, very, very simple example is like, we'll just say the oblique kick, which is not, proprietary to JKD, right? Um, but it's a kick. It's a kick that was part of the JKD curriculum, right?
The arsenal. Yeah.
Or the Jun Fan Gung Fu and all that. But that kick that was adopted into Bruce Lee's you know um pages, we'll say, or his
Hmm.
work. It's there. They're
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
And Burt Richardson has already proven that trapping works. The oblique kick, and literally the JKD, Jeet Kune, the way of the intercepting fist. How many combat sport athletes I can clearly show you that are intercepting the guy's attack with his own fist, like very well too. There's a lot of that going on. So the literal definition, or I'm sorry, the literal translation of JKD,
Yeah.
way of the intercepting fist. You're going to see it if you know how to look for it. It's there all over the place. So in that respect, I would say that JKD definitively works in a so-called real fight. If you're saying that combat sports is parallel
Is right. Yes. Yeah.
with a real fight, then my argument is that there's an overwhelming majority amount of JKD that does in fact work. It's pieced out,
Hmm.
but it's there.
Right. Yeah.
And now people are going to be like, oh, Yeah, they see us doing drills and skills and techniques in our classes, and then the first thing they say is it doesn't work in a real fight, blah blah blah, right? And I say, well, do you know in the sport that I taught, if I were to take you to a gymnastics gym and show you how I trained those athletes to do those skills, it would look nothing like how they did it in competition. It would look nothing like it. And I say this too. I did this to a school, and I said, your argument is that this and that doesn't work in a real fight. Go grab me a jump rope. Go get me a jump rope. And they're like, okay. So they go get the jump rope. And I'm like, we're going to spar. Like, for real. I want you to actually spar me. Get your gear on. Go get your gloves. I'm not going to put anything on. I'm just going to jump rope. I want you to go get your gloves. And we're going to spar right now. And like, I'm dead serious. Go get it. Okay. So they go get their stuff. And I just start swinging rope, jumping rope, hanging out, moving around. And I'm like, okay, come on. Come and hit me. And they're like, and then of course they get caught in the rope and the rope stops and I have to start over.
Right.
And I'm like, so in that respect, we all should stop jumping rope. Based on your logic, we should all stop doing this attribute development because it doesn't work in a real fight. And to add to that, okay, fine, I'll drop the rope, I'll put it down, but I'm still going to do the jump rope action. I'm still going to look like I'm jumping rope while you're sparring me and hitting me.
Right.
And hopefully by that point, they get what I'm actually trying to say.
Yeah.
Guys, there's the action, there's the training of jump rope, but then there's the carryover into the ring or to what it does to our footwork and timing and cadence and distance management and all that. That's what they don't see.
Right.
So their logic would have us stop doing jump rope.
Yes. Yeah.
Kubud, or or stationary trapping, or things like. And that's the other thing too, is that really annoys me is this whole dead pattern thing. People that say that dead patterns are, and I'm like, no, dead patterns. People that don't understand true teaching don't understand the value of dead pattern development and training. I had to do dead pattern development and training to athletes,
Right.
and they were very successful.
Yeah.
Because I had to take them through a certain process to understand.
Right. And you have to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere. So don't give me this like dead pattern crap, guys. There's a place where there's a place where it could that it's necessary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. People just want to sound. They hope that when they say stuff like that, they sound knowledgeable.
Yeah. And by the way, most of the people that have a problem with this whole dead pattern thing are also people that are still using dead patterns in their training.
Oh yeah.
So
But they
most
don't
of the
call it that.
people, right? Most of the people that are criticizing what the other side of the fence is doing are still doing it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Hilarious.
yeah.
Hilarious. Okay. All right. Joe, do we have any idea when we'll be able to start flipping through the pages of this book?
I'm doing I've been up every night in the middle of the night. Casey will tell you the truth. This is nonstop. I'm trying to get this thing done. I'm currently looking. I'm in the market for a publisher while I'm still finishing it.
Okay.
And I might even take on like an actual human ghostwriting assistant to help me sort of get this all polished up.
Right.
And so I'm in that process of getting this done. So that should let people know that hopefully by the end of this year, this thing will be out.
Should I ask you how people can get in touch with you if they want to, or if you want people to get in touch with you?
No, I don't mind.
Okay.
I mean, they can follow me here on
Facebook.
not here on Facebook, but they can get me on Facebook.
Okay.
I don't have a website anymore.
Okay.
But they can do that. They can go to my email, joesharrison@gmail.com.
Okay.
And we'll just use those two for now. Because that seems like the easiest for most people.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got to tell you, you have one guaranteed purchase from me.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate coming on the show. Appreciate talking to you. I've been loving your 25 year was in my opinion my favorite year.
Thank you.
Because of who you brought on, who you talked to, the topics you covered, the change in approach that you had, and whether it was intentional or not. But I'm just saying it was a really good year.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to keep doing it. So let's keep fingers crossed for 2026, my friend.
Absolutely, man. Take care, Dwight, and I hope to see you at some point, man.
All right. You take care.
You got it.
Yeah. That was fun. I told y'all, right? I have the best conversations with JKD people, right? Okay, so that's episode 359 of the Dialogues with Joseph S. Harrison, Joe S. Harrison at gmail.com, or on Facebook, Joseph S. Harrison. At printify.me, rebelgear.printify.me, you can find stuff like this, the Fire and Focus coffee mug. Also, it's a t-shirt and sticker and what have you. Rebelgear.printify.me, Fire and Focus mug, t-shirt, the Four Tenets t-shirt, and all that other stuff. Um, uh, at titansofjkd.com, you can get the information. Now, today is the 9th, and the next Friday, the price is going to go up again. Okay. So I would suggest that people lock in their registrations before next Friday. Titansofjkd.com. What else? At paypal.me/unified MA Miami, paypal.me/unified MA Miami, the Jeet Kune Journey raw but edited version. That is at paypal.me/unified MA Miami. And that is it for this week. I'll go through the comments, see if there's anything that either Joe or I need to reply to, and we will do this again. Well, I'll tell you about it during the week, but I'll just say this: JKD authors. That's like for the next couple of dialogues. That's where we'll be at. All right. So you guys have a great weekend. This is Dwight Woods of Jeet Kune Rebels signing off. We will talk again soon. Take care now.